As soon as I went back to the US, I thought I need to come back to India.
So you thought that Indians love food, Indians are growing, their income is increasing, so they would start eating outside.
And I remember having big fights with my co-founders. And one of my co-founders had left about 3 weeks before the first store opened. He got so frustrated. But the day the first store opened, adjusted for inflation, we did almost 1.9 lakh of sales.
So how did you think about marketing back then?
For us, real estate was the marketing. A mistake we did at that point was
We have Bert from California Burrito today with us here.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
No, our pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming. He is a super busy man, obviously. He's running, 100 outlets?
Yeah, 115 now.
115 outlets. So thank you for making time. And our pleasure to have you here. Bert, I think I wanted to start a little bit back in the day. What brought you back to India? Where are you from? Why did you come back to India?
Sure. So I'm from Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. And in 2010, I was finishing my undergrad education. It was in my junior year, and I had a chance to come and study in India and in Jaipur. I think you're from Jaipur. And had a very interesting, eye-opening experience. I think you were taking me through the philosophy of Mesa School, and I think that was actually the experience I had in India, which was incredibly hands-on, very practical, and put me in lots of very challenging situations. So for me, that experience was so positive that as soon as I went back to the U.S., I thought I need more of this in my life, and I need to come back to India. So it changed my education from music, which was what I had been studying. I thought I was going to become a film composer or maybe a Netflix show composer, and changed into business. And food was something I knew about, and the way to come back to India was business. And when I was in India, I realized it seemed that people did like Mexican food here. There was someone in my program who was cooking Mexican food, and saw people really like that. We were living with families in Jaipur, so with a joint family we would live. And anyways, that's basically what happened is I got committed to this thought and bought a one-way plane ticket to India and moved here right after I graduated. So
let's go back to that point, where these guys are. Back in 2012 or late 11, you came back to India, you had this thought, you thought this was a problem. How would you articulate the problem statement that was brewing in your head at that point of time?
I think that there's a clear story in developing nations regarding food consumption out of home going up as income goes up. So the observation I had was that when I was here, people seemed to like Mexican food. I went to a wedding in Jaipur, and they were playing a lot of Latino music, actually, and a lot of Shakira, which was very curious to me. So somewhere there seemed
very catchy songs, very catchy songs.
Yeah. So I think somewhere to me there was this, and I liked it. So I said, if I love India and I love this, then why not bring this to India? And then I think always when we're choosing to do something, it's good to go where growth is. And India was obviously a place that was growing much faster than the U.S. Within the U.S., there'll always be places where growth is happening. So being where the growth is, I think, is always a great strategy. But that was the basic thought process.
So you thought that Indians love food, Indians are growing, their income is increasing, so they would start eating outside. I think McDonald's and Pizza Hut were becoming big at that point of time.
For sure. I think Taco Bell had also opened here in 2010. So there was some Wall Street Journal news article that came out about that gave further confidence that, oh, wow, someone else is thinking about this, that knows the market. KFC knows the Indian market. So I think there seemed to be a lot of things going in the right direction that to worth betting your time on.
But as a young person back then, how would you take that concept into a testable concept? Did you invite 10 friends and ask them to eat and then give you feedback, or What was it?
No, I remember we went to a party and we met the head of Zynga. Zynga used to be a big video game producer, and they had an office here. And we told the guy who was running that office what we were doing. He said, "Oh, come cater for us." So we did a catering event for their office, and it was just a disaster, actually. But learned a lot from that. We'd hired a chef also who came out from California, and that was in a way, I guess, maybe our first hire, almost our first hire. And so she kind of helped get these things sorted. We did some caterings at different corporate places. I think the even when we were writing the business plan, the thought is that probably the best place to open would be a tech park, and one where there was high employee travel to the U.S. So then we opened our first store in Embassy Golf Links. But I think the intention was always to go. We didn't want to do a job at that point of category building. So the idea was just go where people already have probably known about this cuisine and let their friends educate the friends.
So you launched the first store. How did it go? How was the first day?
Actually, the first day was phenomenally good. So I think we had been through this incredible struggle to get the first store open. It took us about 11 months. And one of my co-founders had left about 3 weeks before the first store opened. He got so frustrated. But the day the first store opened, adjusted for inflation, we did almost 1.9 lakh of sales.
In one day?
In one day.
First day?
First day, which was, very... which was a shock. I mean, we probably thought we would do 40,000 rupees of sales. Adjusted for inflation, I think it was 90,000 rupees.
Back in 2012, there's no Instagram. There is, I think, very little Facebook. People don't have mobile phones with geo network, so there is no marketing on the phone. So how did you think about marketing back then, for the first store, for the first 2-3 months at least?
I think luckily we didn't have to. I think, real estate can also be marketing, choosing the right real estate. At the end of the day, marketing is awareness and eyeballs and whatnot. So for us, real estate was the marketing. I think that the third store we did was in Kormangala, and then that one did not open very well, and that one did require marketing. And I remember having big fights with my co-founders on whether we should take a billboard at Sony Signal. Cost 4 or 5 lakhs, I think, which I thought was a terrible idea. So we compromised and did some bus stands, which I think were like 30,000 rupees. But I think back then, offline was a big thing. But honestly, in the restaurant business, a lot is local store marketing. So boring things like newspaper inserts, some sampling. And the sampling, not so much for us, but for other people. And word of mouth is the ultimate. So I think marketing there's many more options now. But back then, there were many fewer.
But still, I think just thinking first principle, you said real estate was one of the most important levers.
For sure.
If there's footfall, if there's visibility, there's awareness, and there is reason for people to come out and look for food options, like in a tech park, then that would solve for. But then, why not open all the stores in tech parks only?
So we should have. I mean, we did effectively. So we did just open that one that was not. And then we realized that store eventually did well, but after that, we said we're going to go back to our bread and butter here. And I think Krispy Kreme had just opened in Bangalore at that point in time, and we took the head of Krispy Kreme Asia to our EGL store, and he actually gave the right advice. He said, just do this same thing 5 more times and then do something different, which we immediately just didn't follow his advice. But he gave a good advice, and I think that's probably the right approach. And I think duplicating what's already worked, if you can, until it doesn't work, is always
until it taps out. Keep doing
until it taps out, or you have to go faster than you're able to.
And how is the demand shaping up? Like, is it primarily in metros and tier 1 cities, or is it something which is also catching up in smaller cities now?
So we're only open in tier 1, I guess you can call it. So we took I think I got a piece of advice from the founder of Shoppers Stop. I forget his name, Naresh, I think. But he told me, I said, how would you look at expansion? He said, if you can open 1,000 stores in Bangalore, do that before you ever open anywhere else. Because it's so much more efficient to be able to duplicate something that works where you already are than to go somewhere new. Because going somewhere new requires a huge amount of learning. It requires people to look at the store. I mean, it's unnecessary headache. So unless you absolutely have to go super fast, real estate will come available when it does. But much more kind of profitable to open in the same city. That being said, we have we don't give franchises, but we put a franchise form on our website for people to apply. Maybe in the future, who knows what happens. And I think one interesting thing has been the breadth of the requests for franchise. So, we've had, I think, 6 or 8 franchise requests from Dimapur in Nagaland. And I think the amount of cities across India where franchise requests have come, I think tells not a story about us, but a story about how people see demand in their own cities. I mean, Vijayawada, I think there was like 150 requests. So I think across India, there really is this, especially in smaller towns, there seems to be some kind of pent-up demand of, I was just in Patiala, and a friend of mine opened a cafe there. It's, I guess, doing phenomenally well. They're opening a second. So while we are not opening in these places right now, there seems to be a tremendous demand in, across India.
Is there a metric or 2 metrics, you can call it North Star metric, or what do you make your, let's say, a store head accountable for? At the end of the day, if that 1 or 2 KPIs are met, then it means that they did a great job and they would get their incentives.
So if we started with a co-founder relationship, a mistake we did at that point was we didn't have share vesting. So I don't know if you guys teach about share vesting, but share vesting is very important.
Yeah.
Because people need to have skin in the game, and it can't all come at once. So whether it is a co-founder having shares vest over, I don't know, 5 years, 7 years, however long it is, that gives skin in the game for you to be there. I think the same principle it has to be there at the store. And what we have done is actually give everyone skin in the game at the store. So I read I keep reading these business books because you get one good idea out of them. And I read the Good to Great. And in Good to Great, there was a story about this airline called Continental Airlines in the U.S., which had been the lowest performing airline for like 10 years. They'd gone through 8 different CEOs, et cetera. And they were the slowest, the worst in every metric. And a new CEO joined, and the first thing he did, he said, for every month we're on time, I'll pay you guys, everyone, $60. And in 3 months, they became the most on-time airline in the U.S. And I think after hearing that, I thought, well, gosh, what is it that we could, give people skin in the game at the store where they earn from our success? And, at that time, it was, I think, 2022. We'd earlier had manager incentive programs, but we'd never done anything for everyone, which no one does, frankly, in the industry. And at that point in time, it was all about the delivery aggregator, delivery. And delivery, really only 2 metrics matter. One is your rating, so people liking you. And the 2 is your prep time, how fast you are. These 2 things give you placement in the algorithm. Now, I can get placement in the algorithm either by having good performance on those 2 metrics, or I can pay Swiggy and Zomato for visibility. So I said, why don't we just pay our staff for performing on those 2 metrics, and we'll save money and not pay Swiggy and Zomato for marketing. And overnight, a huge impact. So the impact was twofold. One, both the metrics improved, and the second was attrition went way down.
For young folks today, what would you advise them? Should they go and work in a large company or a large startup, which has thousands of people, very well established processes, very strong brand, versus, let's say, joining a very small team in a small startup, or try to build something of their own?
I think it would just depend on the personality. I think there are some people who are, very opinionated and, very headstrong. And those people probably should start their own business or maybe work in a startup where their voice will be, where their impact of their opinion will be heard. Because, I think being somebody who wants to lead, being in a large organization is suppresses that. And if you eventually want to start something, then that's I don't know, but then again, you see people like Jeff Bezos, who goes out and he works in some large organizations and gets an understanding of what's good about large organizations. So there are good things in large orgs and other things that you don't want to copy. So I think it just highly depends on the personality. Some people are, much better suited actually to a big environment. But probably if we're choosing to go to Mesa, we're looking for starting our own thing.
Yeah. And when you look for hiring people in your own team, right? Not just the leadership team, but let's say people who have 2 to 4 years of experience. What are the skills, attributes, qualities that you guys have started to look for over time?
I think that I think for me at least, the interview process is not what I'm looking for, but just trying to remove red flags, because I can't predict necessarily if the person is going to work out, but at least I can figure out if they won't work out. So I think at the end of the day, a lot of it is intuitive. And we try to make it a holistic process where I think there, we would give tests and a few different tests, and we would do an interview, we would do a reference check, and if the different parameters were saying positive, and there weren't any obvious red flags that came up, then we'd go ahead. But I think, we tend to be more of an aggressive culture. We hire people who are a bit more opinionated. We want people who are opinionated. We want people who take ownership. It's very hard to judge that from an interview, to be honest.
But how would somebody stand out? What would make somebody stand out?
What would make someone stand out? I think I ask questions that I shouldn't reveal, because then it won't work anymore. But I would ask people questions about their opinions on things, and for someone who can't give a negative opinion, I wouldn't hire that person.
Should we switch gears a bit and then maybe move to a rapid fire?
Sure.
What is the first Indian street food that you fell in love with before burritos? And
probably pani puri. I think right. I think pani puri is
Jaipur pani puri.
Yeah. I think
I would agree. Yeah.
Actually, the best pani puri I've had is in Kolkata. So I can give some recommendations in case anyone needs.
You mentioned a bunch of times that you listen to a lot of podcasts, you read books. So over the last couple of years, what has been one or two very, very important sources of you to learn? Obviously, there are things that you are learning inside the business, but how have you kept yourself in that mode of learning new things that you can bring back to your business from outside in? And what advice would you give folks here to maybe keep learning?
Sure. So I think if we went through the journey, a big thing that was a learning experience for me was we had the CEO of Domino's Pizza, Ajay Kaul. He became an advisor to our business, and we gave him a little equity to do that. He had approached us, and we actually had almost sold the company to Jubilant in 2015, and he was on the other side of the table, but he liked our business. He came and said, "Hey, I'd like to advise you in exchange for something." And he was a huge source of knowledge, because he had taken the Domino's from 90 to 1,200 stores, and so he had walked the journey. He knew what it was, and moreover, he had run a large company, which I had not. And so I downloaded everything I could from his brain and implemented all of it. 80% of it, I would say, was relevant. So that was probably the first phase, which is having a mentor. I think now, talking with people running businesses, certainly podcasters, people tell the truth. I mean, often in podcasts, people tell valuable things. I think these have been the main ways that I've been learning.
Yeah, I think makes sense. No, those are all the questions from us. We'll now open up for questions from everybody.
Hi, Bert. My name is Param. My question to you is, where do you draw a line between authenticity and Indianization of your SKUs? And what's your framework for green lighting any new SKU?
Sure. So I think the way we think about it is we don't call it authentic. We say it's real Mexican flavors. And what that means is that we use the ingredients that would be in Mexico, but in the format that they exist in the U.S. And I think I'm not Mexican, obviously, so I don't get into trying to be authentically Mexican per se. But probably the first 6 years was about trying to figure out what Indians liked. And after 6 years, I had gone to Mexico. My parents live in Mexico. And the realization, which was an obvious one, was that we should just try and do what the Mexicans liked in the first place because they invented this product. Indian food is the best in India. If I go have Indian food in the U.S., it's usually very bad actually because they've tried to estimate what other people want. So I think the last probably 8 years have been about how do we make it taste the same way you would have it in California or in Mexico, and don't try and get into a guessing game of what different people want, basis whatever local food habits are. People are coming to us to have a different experience and to have one, maybe that they even had for the first time in the U.S. or that their friends said, hey, this is a credible version of whatever experience I had in the U.S. So I think that's the basic thought process.
And what's your process for green lighting any
yeah.
SKU?
So for green lighting something new, the first thing is we have a kitchen at the office. So it gets tested there. We serve it to all of the staff who work in the office. Then it would go to one store, and it would get almost no marketing. And if it sells and it keeps growing in sales, then it would scale to more stores. And if it doesn't sell, it would be removed.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Bert, Ritvik here once again. So if I use the metric of calorie per rupee, a person gets more calories having California Burrito, Kava, Chipotle box set compared to let's say Wow Momo or McDonald's. Definitely because they are higher on calorie and carbs and protein side. So do you think this is where the new consumerism in India is going, where people are optimizing for having more food for less, filling their stomachs more?
No, I think if anything, I would say there may be some trend of people looking in terms of rupees per gram of protein. Where am I getting a good amount of protein at at a better value, I should say, because it's not about the price per se, it's about the value you get for the price. So I think maybe earlier it was more about the absolute price, and now it's really more about what is the value I'm getting for what I spend. But I think people probably come to us more for vegetables and protein and filling up as well. But I think there's that consideration.
Hi Bert, Shresh this side.
Hi.
I'm trying to build in the real estate space. So I read that you are planning to open 300 stores by 2030. So what are the key real estate trends you are looking to open, like in the food courts, in emerging markets? So what are the really key trends?
So we look at all sorts of property, but if you looked at our mix, it's probably 30% malls, 30% tech parks, and the rest is standalone stores. So we would pick out the good malls and then pick out the areas where we want a standalone store. And then you have to keep driving around and looking for real estate. And, the thing about real estate that's interesting is that I would say that generally the price awareness is not very high. So unless they're building a new building with a loan from the bank, they may not know what the market rate is for real estate. So we look for good well-priced real estate.
Thank you.
Hi, Danish this side. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So recently we saw a campaign in California Burrito. It was basically about you guys were providing free small bowls after taking a new number or a new connection like that. So if you would have not gone ahead with the kind of marketing that you did for new consumers, what is the other option that you would have taken to acquire or to gain new insights into the customer?
So we started referral. I think referral is common in tech businesses, but not really in food. I think some cafes try it. So we had launched this program, and we gave a free bowl. It was too aggressive. Too many people were getting free ones. So then I think it was changed now is you get 100 rupees off, and the other person gets a free bowl. But I think for us, building dine-in sale is the most important thing because margins are better, and we want people to have the food in the store. It's better in the store than in delivery. So if you think about marketing people to come into a store, there's not that many mediums, and they're often expensive, and you don't know whether they're working or not. So this at least gives us a CAC, if you will, the cost, customer acquisition cost, that we can calculate, and we can see what happens, whether these are genuine people coming in, and they're mostly genuine. There's fake ones as well, but mostly genuine. And so I think we just see it as a way of boosting dine-in sales.
Thank you.
Morning, fantastic. And thank you for being here, Bert. Thank you for taking out the time.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you.